I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Can you say that again?
Almost. Where is Zoom? Here we go. I don't know. It's not. Yeah, I don't have any problem. So, yeah, I think that's fine. Was Eric still in the room? Can you come and get this set up on Zoom for me?
If Wes wants to do it, is over there.
Okay. If you could get my computer set up on Zoom, and if you, Wes, if you wanted to,
Wes.
If you want to set up,
there's a spot where, kind of open area to put your, you want to move over there.
Can you just turn the Zoom on for me? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, just go ahead. Just go. Go ahead. Yeah, you sit over there, then you can kind of twist around.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and welcome everyone. I feel like everyone's really far away. If we had our old Monterey room set up, we could have been sitting in a circle, which would have been nice. But this is the room setup that we've got to work with. So I'm Wendy Rudowski. I'm your District 4 County Supervisor. My colleague Glenn Church is our District 2 County Supervisor. Our colleagues asked us, created an ad hoc committee to look at the provisions within Assembly Bill 1185, which gave some additional authorities to supervisors to create sheriff oversight bodies. And so we've been sort of meeting with staff and trying to understand what is 1185, what are the needs that we're trying to address, what are the questions that we have, what are the problems that we're looking to solve for. And we wanted to make sure that we were doing this work and exploring this issue with and in partnership with community. Thank you. And so thank you for being here tonight. We're having, this will be our first in some number of community meetings. We wanted to start by sharing with the public the information that's been provided to us as a Board of Supervisors and an ad hoc committee. We wanted to solicit your feedback. This is, I'll just do a couple ground setting pieces here. This is an ad hoc committee meeting. This isn't a formal board meeting. So we will look for your voice, hearing your voices. But I do want to just, as a background, the community came to me last year at a time when our board was struggling with some really challenging situations in the sheriff's office. And the community looked to the Board of Supervisors to address and to fix some of those very challenging issues in the sheriff's office. As a Board of Supervisors, it became very clear and apparent to me that the independent authority of the sheriff and the separate duties and responsibilities of a Board of Supervisors made it very difficult for us to really do anything, to provide any oversight, even to compel information to be shared with us. So I spent a lot of time reading, government code. And the one code that I just want to start off, and we'll go into some more detail with County Council. But from the Board of Supervisors duties, section 25303 of the government code speaks to the supervision of official conduct of officers, investigative and prosecutorial functions of sheriffs and district attorneys. It states that the Board of Supervisors shall supervise the official conduct of all county officers and officers of all districts and other subdivisions of the county, particularly insofar as the functions and duties of such county officers and offices of all districts and subdivisions of the county relating to the assessing, collecting, safekeeping, management, or disbursement of public funds. It shall see that they faithfully perform their duties, direct prosecutions for delinquencies, and when necessary, require them to renew their official bond and make report and present their books and accounts for inspection. This section shall not be construed to affect the independent and constitutionally and statutorily designed investigative and prosecutorial functions of the sheriff and district attorney. The Board of Supervisors shall not obstruct the investigative functions of the sheriff of the county, nor shall it instruct the investigative and prosecutorial functions of the district attorney. Nothing contained herein shall be construed to limit the budgetary authority of the Board of Supervisors over the district attorney or sheriff. So that language really limits in many ways the Board of Supervisors' authority over providing oversight of the sheriff's office to these budgetary issues, these budgetary questions. So with that in mind, I wanted to make sure that we were taking advantage and really making sure that we understood every single tool that was available to us to provide appropriate oversight if and when issues arose that needed to have oversight conducted or have accountability measures in place. So that initiated my request to the county to begin discussing AB 1185. And earlier this year, our board decided to create an ad hoc committee to so that we could study the issue and bring back some recommendations. So with that as my initial introduction, I will pass the floor to my colleague Supervisor Church for any sort of initial comments, and then we will move into a presentation from county staff. We've invited the sheriff to be here as well to share some thoughts, and then we'll just sort of open the floor up and hope to hear from everyone who's here. We'll figure out how much time we have and make sure that we adjust so that we can hear from as many folks as possible.
I really don't have too much more to add. Wendy, you went over in detail, I think, pretty well and gave a pretty good background of all this. I think at this point, I just kind of want to turn it over to our presentations we have and into the public. And this is what this is about, to listen to people. And yeah.
Excellent. We do have about 50 people online with us today on Zoom. So if you are with us on Zoom, if you encounter any challenges or problems, please raise your hand so that we can help troubleshoot those things. But we will move forward with a presentation from county staff at this point.
Good evening. I am Susan Blitch, Chief Assistant County Counsel. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep. All right. As Supervisor Askew and Church indicated, we're here to talk about sheriff oversight, particularly under recently enacted Assembly Bill 1185. Supervisor Askew actually talked about this already, but there are certain enumerated powers for the sheriff and the Board of Supervisors. The office of the sheriff is established in the state constitution as an elective office, and the sheriff has many enumerated statutory duties, including what you traditionally hear: preserving the peace, investigating public offenses, crime prevention, crime investigation, and running the county jail. The Board of Supervisors has the authority under 25303 to supervise the official conduct of all county officers, particularly as it relates to collecting, safekeeping, management, or distribution of public funds. While the Board of Supervisors has budgetary authority over the sheriff, they cannot interfere with the investigative function of the sheriff, nor prevent the office of the sheriff from performing its statutory duties. The Board of Supervisors also does not have the power to discipline or fire the sheriff. That brings us to Assembly Bill 1185, and I'll refer to it as AB 1185. It was adopted in 2020, became effective in 2021, and is codified in the government code. The purpose of 1185 was to assist the board in its duties under 25303 to supervise the official conduct of all county officers. Because the office of the sheriff is a constitutionally established office, the Board of Supervisors, as we have explained, has limited power in overseeing the conduct of the office of the sheriff. AB 1185 assists the Board of Supervisors in conducting its oversight of the sheriff. It is also designed to increase transparency and community engagement. AB 1185 authorizes the Board of Supervisors to create an oversight board or an Office of Inspector General, or both. The oversight board's the primary duty, again, would be to assist the Board of Supervisors under 25303. It envisions that members of the Oversight Board would be appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors would designate one member as chair. The chair of the Oversight Board can issue subpoenas, which is basically compelling somebody to produce documents or attend as a witness to be examined. Any witness or any peace officer or any documents relating to the affairs of the Sheriff's Department or within the jurisdiction of the Oversight Board. The Inspector General model has the same purpose, but instead of the chair of the Oversight Board, the Inspector General would have independent authority to issue subpoenas. So again, reiterating, there's really three options under AB 1185. There's an Inspector General model, there's an Oversight Board model, or there's a model where you have an Inspector General with an advisory board. To kind of give a background or information about what some other counties are doing, there were a number of counties that had some kind of police commissioner or inspector general or oversight board before AB 1185 was enacted. That includes Sacramento County, which had an inspector general, San Diego, which had a Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board, Orange County had an Office of Independent Review, Los Angeles County had an Office of Inspector General, along with Sonoma County and Santa Clara. Oversight post AB 1185, meaning after AB 1185 enacted, most of these counties that had prior bodies expanded the power of those bodies to include subpoena powers under 1185. So far, the one sole county who has actually created a body pursuant to AB 1185 is Santa Cruz County, who in just this year established the Office of the Inspector General. San Mateo is currently exploring oversight under 1185. There may be others. These are the counties I'm aware of at this time. Some of the next kind of portion of this, I'm going to talk about some of the administrative and legal issues surrounding establishment of an oversight board or an inspector general. That includes if the board decided to use the inspector general model, would the board use a contractor or hire an employee of the county to be an inspector general? Who would that person report to? What staff would support an inspector general or an oversight body? And how would it be paid for? There is no indication of how many board members would be on an oversight board, nor where they would be appointed from. So those are some of the administrative issues. Legal considerations, there's not a lot of case law out there about AB 1185, but the devil is in the details because you have kind of two competing statutes. And one says that oversight by the board can't obstruct the investigative function of the sheriff. And AB 1185 says that it's people acting under 1185 shall not be considered to obstruct the investigative functions of the sheriff. So you kind of have two competing statutes there. And to this date, there aren't any cases really harmonizing those competing factors, if you will. Other legal considerations are there may be a meet and confer requirement under the Public Employment Relations Board because traditionally oversight bodies or inspector generals might investigate something that may end up being used as discipline against a peace officer. The peace officer Bill of Rights may be impacted, and the PERB has already actually ruled that there's a meet and confer requirement with unions before the Board of Supervisors would adopt one of these oversight bodies. The Peace Officer Bill of Rights provides protections concerning the disclosure of peace officer personnel records, and also provides certain representation requirements when a peace officer is being investigated. So all of these things kind of abut the actions of an oversight board or an inspector general. There's also issues potentially if there's, say there's an officer involved shooting and there's an active criminal investigation, whether if at the same time an oversight board wanted to investigate it, how that would interplay with the DA's authority to investigate and interview witnesses to the shooting. Finally, there are privacy right issues with some of the reports, particularly when you're looking at in custody deaths. There is necessarily mental health and medical information that might be in the reports. So finally, before I stop talking, I wanted to talk about some of the existing sheriff oversight that is already in place. I think most people know about the Hernandez class action, which involves oversight of medical, mental health, safety and security, ADA, and dental at the jail. This is a federal lawsuit, and federal appointed monitors are monitoring conditions at the jail and making recommendations on policies and procedures and practices. The BSCC provides an annual inspection of the jail. There's also annual reporting required by the sheriff to the United States Department of Justice on all civil rights lawsuits. SB 1421 now makes public records related to the discharge of a firearm, incidents involving great bodily injury, incidents related to sexual assault, substantiated findings of dishonesty, excessive force, failure to intervene in excessive force, and discrimination. There's also a military equipment policy, which talks about what kind of equipment can be used by the sheriff's office. There's also now SB 2, which disqualifies some people from law enforcement, discusses mandatory reporting of misconduct by law enforcement, also allows the Peace Officer Standards and Accountability Advisory Board to investigate misconduct. There is mandatory training by post and even additional training that's required for corrections deputies. There is an annual health department inspection for the jail. And finally, the sheriff has to comply with the Racial and Identity Profiling Act, which requires them to submit reports to the Attorney General's office on vehicle and pedestrian stops and citizen complaints alleging racial and identity profiling. And that is a lot of information that I just delivered to everybody. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And Susan, I don't know if we got a chance to introduce yourself. If you just introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are and what role you play in the county and how you work with the Board of Supervisors.
Sure. I'm Chief Assistant County Counsel Susan Blitch. I advise multiple departments in the county as well as the Board of Supervisors and sometimes the clerk of the board. Kind of a generalist, I would say.
Great. Thank you. And just quickly, also in the room, we have a number of other county staff. We have, I think I saw Nick Pasculi with County Communications, Nick Chulos, who's our Assistant CAO. Pardon me if I'm missing folks. I think I saw Mia Carroll just step out. County Communications, Eric Morris in the back from a District 4 office. And we do have Spanish translation, which we should have started the meeting by introducing both in the room and online. And I think anyone who's online should be able to access that using the interpretation feature, which we've all become very accustomed to accessing if needed. Okay, thank you for that presentation. I want to quickly, I think, go back to Supervisor Church and myself. We received this presentation when the board was considering the referral that we'd put forward. So this is the same information now that we've heard a couple times. And I did have a couple questions for you, Susan, before we move on. When you say subpoena ducus tecum, can you explain what that means?
Word for issuing a subpoena compelling someone to produce documents.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. And then on page, at least page 16 for me, it's the page that talks about the other considerations that are legal. And we say that it's difficult to harmonize the following, that AB 1185, it seems like that the AB 1185 as well as government code section both state that the Board of Supervisors nor an oversight body shall obstruct any investigative functions of the sheriff. Is there something different between those two statements that I'm missing? Seems like they're both saying we can't obstruct the sheriff's investigative responsibilities.
Right. And the distinction I was making is that the legislature, when they passed AB 1185, says that the activities through 1185, meaning the oversight boards or the inspector generals, their activities shall not be considered to obstruct the investigative functions of the sheriff.
To obstruct.
Right. And
versus shall not obstruct.
And then at the same time, the government code says investigations by the board shall not obstruct the investigative functions of the sheriff. So I'm speculating here, but I think at some point there'll be a case law about the scope of 1185 and how far they can go before they start interfering with the statutory duties of the sheriff.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me. Did you have any questions from the presentation?
Just one question or clarification, perhaps. The chair of the Oversight Commission, of course, selected by the Board of Supervisors and has the power to subpoena. I just, wanted for everybody to be clear on that. That is not an individual power. That's a power that would be from the commission granted to that chair, or is that chair had that power individually?
The actual statute's not super explanative, but I would envision, yes, that there would have to be the actual board would have to agree with the subpoena. You're not going to have, I would hope you wouldn't have a chair that would be unilaterally acting without the support of the board.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to, it says under section AB1, the chair of the Sheriff Oversight Board shall issue a subpoena or subpoena ducus tecum whenever the board deems it necessary or important. So I would guess that there would be some action there. Okay, I think thank you for this. I did want to invite the sheriff to this meeting. I want to, again, just be really clear. This is an ad hoc committee of the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors have certain authorities and responsibilities. The sheriff has different authorities and responsibilities. AB 1185 was put in place to potentially give the Board of Supervisors additional tools so that we could fulfill our obligation of oversight within the limitations, knowing that the sheriff also has a whole set of other compliance responsibilities that they're responsible for. So just keeping really clear sort of what the goal and our outcome is for talking about 1185. I think the sheriff might be online. If we could double check to see if we have someone from the sheriff's office with us online, I will. Do we know who is planning to represent the sheriff's office today?
It's our understanding that Sheriff Nieto was going to be present either in the room or on Zoom.
Okay.
But we haven't heard anything today about that.
Okay. And I'm just scrolling through. We have former Sheriff Mike Kanalakis with us. Thanks for joining us, Mike. And I know there are a couple other events happening tonight, so people are sort of bouncing around. Okay, well, if we don't have someone from the sheriff's office with us to share their thoughts, we can circle back to that. And I think at this point, I was thinking we would just open it up to hear from the community. I do want to announce that county staff, we recognize that the public comment is one way, verbal testimony is one way that people share their ideas and feedback with us. We have received some written communication. If you're interested in putting your thoughts in more detail in writing, you can email that to our board at cob@ca.us. What is it? Oh my goodness. For what's our email address? It's cob@co.monterey.ca.us. Sorry, there we go. Thank you. And we also have a survey that is in the back of the room. If you don't want to verbally put your thoughts on paper, you can answer some yes or no questions and fill in the blanks. We really are interested in hearing from the community more about what you think in oversight, like what are the issues that we need to be solving for? I know what issues I was looking to solve for when I brought this forward. I don't know what my colleagues think, but I do want to know what you all think so that we can try to figure out what the challenges are that we're looking to solve for so that we can make sure we're solving the right challenges as we move forward. And so we really do want to hear your feedback. This will also be posted online and we'll make sure, I'm not sure what the plan was. Will this be posted on the Maine County website? Okay, this is up on the Maine County website. So if you're with us on Zoom, we do have on the Maine County website a copy of this survey. However, you're also welcome to speak with us today. And it looks like our sheriff is in the house. So
I apologize for being late. Speaker Rivas was
yes, indeed.
honoring him, so I had to say hello.
Very important. We'll give you, we were just getting ready a minute to get organized, Sheriff, but thank you so much for joining us. We just had our county council sort of review some of the information that they've shared at our board meeting. As Supervisor Church and I had some questions. We wanted to be really clear that, 1185 is a tool for the Board of Supervisors in terms of providing our required oversight authority, but that the Sheriff's Office also has a number of other tools and things that you're doing to make sure that there's accountability and transparency. So we wanted to give you a chance to share a little bit about what is in place and then what you might see a benefit or how 1185 could help us work more closely with the Sheriff's Office. So we'll pass the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was actually here to listen, Supervisor Askew, but thank you for the invitation. And I can say that I support transparency. And depending on how something's structured, I do support oversight. I've had it before. I'm not afraid of it. But there are a lot of cost oversights. And I said that during my campaign also, that you have to look at different models and how you do it. And are there models in place? And do you go with an inspector general model? Do you go with a combined model? Do you go with a commission model? In fact, I recommended some professional audit groups that have done this in other cities. What I'd like to remind everybody, though, and the people that are in the audience and both listening, is that one size does not fit all. when you're talking about transparency. And I know the prior administration had a lot of issues that there was a huge demand from the public, I think, to say what's going on with the sheriff's office. And I share that sentiment. That's why I ran for sheriff. But what I can say to the public, and some things I can release, some things I can't because of how the laws are structured, is that we have zero tolerance for misconduct. We're taking everything as a complaint if it comes in as a complaint. We will be at some point providing those reports onto our website so the public knows. We can't go into specifics, but we can be very generalist on what we can provide for the public so they can know what's coming in, what's sustained, what's not sustained, and the deposition or the dispositions on those complaints. So that's one thing that's a big change. The other thing is that we're accessible to the Board of Supervisors and to the media. And so we have not turned down any media request. There's some things we can't answer. They understand that. But we talk to them, good, bad, indifferent. We're talking to them. Same as the Board of Supervisors, the requests that are coming in for you. If we can release the information, we are giving it to you folks, and we're opening up the books. I know I've met with County Council about more reports that we can put onto our website so the public is aware of what's happening in our sheriff's department. And we're going to be looking at reports like use of force, you know, the things that you read about in the papers. I'm really happy to say that just last week, the Bureau of Corrections does an audit every year on your sheriff's department. And it is about your certification for your county jail. This is specifically for the county jail. Last year, unbeknownst to the community, the sheriff's office failed it. And I don't think anybody knew, but I didn't know about it until we were going into it and saying they failed last year. I'm very proud to say that we passed the certification process this year, the audit. And it's going to be noted. We'll release the report, what we can, to the public as soon as we can. Hopefully all of it. There might be some we have to take out because there's safety concerns that we can't release all our procedures because of safety for our deputies and for the people that we house. But we'll be releasing that report. And one of the things that the auditors from the Board of Corrections stated is that there have been a lot of improvements in the jail since the last time that they were here. In addition to that, the Hernandez settlement, that's had a lot of people know about the Hernandez settlement. But one of the things County Council did request that we take a look at, where are we at with our agency on the things that we have to meet baseline, or we have to follow this law or this rule. And so we have a bunch of action items that we're looking at the sheriff's office in order to get to that baseline so we can become the best sheriff's department in our county. And so as the reports come along, because we're audited by a lot of different people, we're releasing that stuff. And, you know, I look forward to working with the Board of Supervisors as we move forward. And like I've told you, if you want to come look at our budget book, our books are open to you that we can legally open, and we'll always go through County Council, say, can we give that to you? We haven't said no yet. So that's kind of where we're at with the sheriffs. I was here more to listen than to actually give comments.
Great. Well, we're really glad to have you and appreciate your feedback and appreciate the openness and transparency that you are continuing to work to bring to the sheriff's office. I've said this before, and I think we've talked about, trust is essential to safety. You can't have public safety without public trust in our law enforcement partners. And we are working, I think, all collectively to rebuild that and make sure that we have the systems in place so that if we ever find ourselves in a future situation where that trust is broken between the sheriff and the Board of Supervisors, we, at least as a Board of Supervisors, will have some ability to take action if and when necessary. So thank you for being here.
And Supervisor, can I add one thing? No matter what the supervisors decide to do, the system is important to me because I also, as a sheriff, have to protect the rights of my deputies. And there's laws in place that no matter what you create, you don't get the records. Even if you subpoena them, you don't get the records. Council gets involved. So I would hate to have to waste taxpayers' money. I would hate to cause a rift between the sheriff's office and the Board of Supervisors because there's legal things that don't allow us to do that. And sometimes there's the community expectation, well, you should be able to do that. The law's not set that way. I don't create the laws. I just follow the rules and the laws.
Thank you very much. I think that's what the more that I'm reading and learning, the more that I'm finding. And I think a part of what I want to make sure is we're all learning together and that we're all open to having a respectful conversation about where the limitations are, where the opportunities are, with a shared commitment for increased transparency and accountability, and making sure that we can uphold our duties to the public as well. So thank you very much. With that, it's about 6:08. We have about 60 people now online with a number of hands raised. We've got, I don't know, a rough count of 20 or so in the room with us today. And so if we figure an hour worth of public comment.
Could we maybe suggest to maybe just kind of get a count, maybe online of people who want to speak,
So
and maybe in the room, and we can get an idea then how much time.
Make sure we allow for everyone. I do want to hear from everyone.
Yeah, I want to hear from everyone, but I don't want to, if we don't have as speakers are going to take up the whole time.
Sure.
I do want to give everybody a full opportunity to speak.
Great. Order question. And if you could just come to the microphone so that the folks online, I want to make sure we're including everyone. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Robin Cohn, and I had a lot of questions for
County Council.
For County Council from the presentation, because I'm still not clear on some of the points, and I think that would help me. And I don't know if anybody else still had questions, but if we could ask some questions before moving into comments, I don't know.
Okay. If we could maybe just start with a raising of hands, if anyone has questions and or comments, if we could get just a quick show of hands, and we'll do if you're online and you plan to comment or question, if you could raise your hand so we can see.
I think there's 8 to 10 in here.
There's about 10 more online, 10, a little more, dozen online. So what does that give us?
I'm assuming more will probably join in, but if we got a dozen, 2 minutes is going to be 48. We could probably show me some response, but maybe we should hold it to a couple minutes in, roughly, if possible.
Okay, so maybe we'll figure
lose 2 minutes.
Lose 2 minutes. We're not going to cut anyone off, but if you could, and let's ask questions and comments. I think for all of us, we're not expecting to have outcomes at this point. I think Glenn and I are really we're looking to hear what your questions are, hear what your comments are, hear what your general feedback and thoughts for us are. What problems are we looking to solve? What are the concerns that may exist? What are the opportunities that you see in front of us? And then we will take all of this feedback, answer what we can tonight, take the rest of it back.
This is the beginning.
Sit down and talk and figure out where what we can do to consolidate and move forward. And communications, Nick.
Yes, Supervisor. If people fill out the surveys here, if they give them to me before they leave, that'd be great. They don't have to fill them out, but if they choose to, just get them to me.
Okay, great. So I'm assuming we'll get more questions on the surveys. I'm assuming we'll get more questions that come in via communication, public comment. So if you're with us online, please do make sure that you check our main county website for a copy of the survey. You're also welcome if you have more thoughts and ideas and want to communicate with us outside of the survey. Please do send us an email to cob@co.monterey.ca.us so that we can make sure that all of your questions, your thoughts, your concerns, your ideas are incorporated into sort of the bigger thinking so that we can collectively figure out where we go from here. So with that, let's start with those of you who are present in the room, and we'll do a timer for 2 minutes. But like I said, if you could just, we'll keep each other accountable here. This is not a formal meeting. So, and we'll start with Robin, if you wanted to bring your question first.
Yeah. What I heard from the county council is that this 1185, is that what it is? Is filled with catch-22s. That's, I guess, how I would summarize it. So there's an invitation and then immediate limitations. And I feel like I don't really understand in the best case what the opportunities are that this bill really presents. I know what I would like, but it sounds like also from the sheriff, the message is it can't do too much. So I appreciate all the improvements I'm hearing that have happened in the sheriff's department, but a mechanism like this is supposed to go beyond maybe the best intentions and the efficacy of a particular administration, because if we don't have any tools, then there's nothing we can do if that administration changes. So That seems really important. I don't understand what is the Peace Officer Bill of Rights. Who gave that Bill of Rights? Is that the state constitution? Is that something from the county? And what is the Bill of Rights? Does the Bill of Rights mean tough luck? There's nothing we can do because they have this Bill of Rights. What about our Bill of Rights? So, I would like to see a really robust mechanism, and I'd really like to understand if all that is being said that it's already not really an option because of all these catch-22s. So if there's a subpoena power, but tough luck, we can't ever really subpoena everything because anything that has to do with oversight of sheriffs ultimately is a personnel issue. I don't see how it couldn't be in the end because there's individuals that are doing or not doing or abusing or not abusing things. Ultimately, it seems like it could get connected to a disciplinary issue in many, many cases anyway. Some could just be procedures that are not sufficient. Anyway, that's 2 minutes, I guess.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Those are some really great questions I think that I share with you. And so we'll make sure we try to get, if we could just come on up, introduce yourself, and we can roll through folks. And I'm taking notes. We also have this being videoed, so we will be able to transcribe and
it is being recorded. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bill Light, resident of Monterey County. I don't think we should approach this with a fear of what the limitations may be. I think the obvious choice for our county, based on not this sheriff's actions necessarily, but previous sheriff or sheriffs, is to have both a commission assembled of public members that are either appointed by supervisors or maybe other groups that are recognized by the county as being, pertinent to oversight, and an inspector general. I think we need both. I think the inspector general should be a contractor, not an employee of the county. I think they should be as far away from any conflict of interest as possible in the oversight of the sheriff's department. And I know there are limitations, but there are things that have gone on in this county that I've witnessed. There's a sheriff advisories council that seems to work somewhat off the books, that goes around, takes personnel and equipment around the county to various wealthy individuals, landowners, farmers, others in our community, and pitches for big money donations so that they can buy stuff that they want or help support an airplane that they have. I think there needs to be some oversight of that Sheriff's Advisory Committee. I think we had a recent issue where the state sheriffs came to Pebble Beach. We had sheriff officers logging in at the jail and going over to Pebble Beach, providing ride services and other things. It took us a year, the public, to get that report out of actually the Board of Supervisors. It wasn't even the Sheriff's Department. It's out of the DA's office and out of the Board of Supervisors. That's ridiculous. We should not have to fight for that. Another thing that happens, is happening all over the country. We don't have body cams. We don't have dash cams. Do we have cameras in the jail so we know exactly what's going on? I mean, this should be a priority. And so I appreciate there are limitations, enumerated powers and all that, but we should test what those are. And transparency should not be sacrificed just because it might cost a few bucks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next up in the room, just come on up. I saw a bunch of hands. I know people are here to comment. We really want to hear your feedback.
Take another two.
Can I just, so we don't get too far ahead, just to make some clarifications. So the Sheriff's Advisory Committee Council, they don't make any recommendations. It's a foundation. They're actually changing the name because that confuses the public. They're a nonprofit that raises money for equipment. When we do get equipment, board reports come to the board for big purchase items that that it's coming into the inventory for the sheriff's office. So it has nothing to do with, they don't get access or any special things from the sheriff's office. They are just a nonprofit fundraising arm to help fund equipment that is not normally funded through regular channels. That's pretty standard across the industry to have some type of foundation or nonprofit that raises monies for things like that.
Great. Thank you, Sheriff. And I think just for the sake of making sure we can hear from everyone, I'm just going to keep notes, and maybe we could just do some answers afterwards. We can compile that. So we want to hear from, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Laura, NAMI member and family member of an incarcerated individual. My concerns and needs would be having a physical designated space, a mental health unit, where the severely mentally ill and gravely disabled can be housed in the county jail, who are not in the competency program. CDCR has a Department of Mental Health, and San Jose or Santa Clara County jails have mental health units. I feel like they're under protective custody, which is a label, for example, rapists, child predators, or non-active gang members. And this can put the mentally ill in more harm and danger than they already are, being labeled mentally ill. I feel like they're put at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just say for anyone that wanted to make sure we follow up with you, I don't think we ask for names or contact information on the survey, but if you are with us and wanted to leave your name and contact information, we'll do our best to try, because sometimes there's 1185 issues, and it sounds like there's also a sort of a wide variety of other issues, and we do want to make sure we can follow up with you. Okay, thank you.
My name is Rory Gomez Aarons. I'm a volunteer for NAMI, Monterey County National Alliance on Mental Illness. So my question of many would be, first of all, a comment. I was unaware that the sheriff's office had other existing oversight bodies. I've read one proposal that is suggesting 7 to 9 members on this commission and an inspector general. And there are also 4 to 5 court-appointed monitors now at the jail due to the Hernandez lawsuit settlement. So that would be a total of close to 20 or over 20 people in oversight positions. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody please count, but that's a lot to me. So my question, I'm just wondering if that would be too many cooks in the kitchen. I support the idea of oversight, but is that too many cooks in the kitchen? Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room here for public comment? Yeah, come on up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Annabelle Chavez. My husband was killed at Monterey County Jail last year. They keep talking about the budget and how they're short, but these lawsuits, 7 people have died, 4 people in the last 3 months. And then I believe 2 were taken in the emergency room. There was another one on July 4th. He was taken in on to Natividad Medical Center on the 29th. The jail released him the day before he died. So I guess they're not claiming that as one of their deaths. But I mean, you look at all these people working at the jail, and if you look at the California's Department of Corrections, like what the average pay is for the officers. These ones are making about over 2 times what the average is. So, I mean, there's been death after death after death. And get rid of all of them, hire new ones at the average pay, and you can have twice as many. These lawsuits that from all these deaths, they're costing the county how much? Millions and millions of dollars. So it's like, maybe you should look at the people working there, because maybe they're the problem. And then you could save some money on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Annabelle. And I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you for being here. Any other public comment in the room? Come on up.
I'm Marianne Gawain, and I want to acknowledge that I spoke to Ms. Chavez before the hearing, and I'm just really humbled to be here in the presence of her loss. And I care deeply about these things, but I'm not personally affected. So I speak with humility. I am a resident of unincorporated District 5 in Carmel Valley, where we're very dependent on the wisdom and rules set by the supervisors, and also, of course, very dependent on the sheriff, as that is our mainline law enforcement in unincorporated Monterey. And I thank you for holding the hearing and for getting public input. As I understand it, our sheriff would like to institute best practices in her department, but her allocation of resources is constrained by the urgent need to address and resolve problems covered in the Hernandez settlement. And I note that these problems occurred prior to her taking office. Today, the citizens of Monterey County are truly paying a tax imposed on us by the sins and errors of the past. We see this in other areas of public policy in this country. The Board of Supervisors needs to support the Sheriff's Department so we can have a humane jail in our county and get the settlement behind us and free up resources to build a more effective and trusted law enforcement system. At the same time, the opportunity to establish sheriff oversight is a legacy moment for this Board of Supervisors. Had such a system been in place earlier, we would likely not have gotten into the mess that led to the Hernandez settlement and likely could have avoided other scandals. Effective law enforcement depends on the sheriff's leadership and training of officers, but also on a solid measure of trust and cooperation between our community and the law enforcement authorities. Citizen oversight is foundational to this trust. I understand that you have a lot to juggle in the budget, but a budget is expression of priorities. And I look to the supervisors to allocate funds to express priority we place on trustworthy law enforcement, and that one that includes effective corrective mechanisms that stem problems as they emerge, rather than allowing them to impose suffering and financial penalties in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like maybe you were reading, but if you wouldn't mind submitting that to us as well so that we can make sure we've got it all accurate, that'd be great. Is there anyone else in the room for public comment?
Hi. So I wanted to comment about my own experience with the police over the last 20 years in Monterey County. There have been a couple of times when I have called the police because I needed intervention, and they treated me like I was the perpetrator on the perpetrator. And when I've made complaints to the police about the police at the police station, they just put it in the circular file. It doesn't go anywhere. So they aren't above the law. They aren't above reproach. And there needs to be some kind of mechanism so that they can be responsible for the safety of the people that they're getting paid a lot of money to protect and keep safe, and not just, make the victim the perpetrator on them or on the perpetrators.
Thank you, Eloise, for being here tonight with us. Anyone else in the room? Otherwise, we'll move on to, okay, come on up.
Thank you for taking the time to hear us. My name is Robert Choconock. I've lived in Monterey County since 1970 and I've been around a while, and I've seen a lot of sheriff's races, and this is the first one that's actually benefited the way I think and the way I vote. There have been previous speakers who spoke, and I agree with some of the things they said. In fact, most of the things they said. I think it's important for the supervisor to establish an oversight immediately, because we're not always going to have a good sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gail Smith. I appreciate what this last woman said, in that when you call the sheriff, they don't respond in any way that's normal. We had someone coming into our home. I live in Las Palmas Ranch, and I've been harassed by my neighbor. And when I talk to the sheriff, they just don't do anything, and they do treat you like you're the bad person. Now, I have someone coming into my house, and I've had a number of things taken. And I want some kind of reasonable response to it. A lot of what's going on seems very crazy. And I, at this point, seem pretty crazy. I am at this point. And I want someone to. I went to the Board of Supervisors finally and talked to them. And they arranged for me to speak to John Thornburg. Well, that was an exercise in futility because it was about sexual assault, and he's a person who doesn't care about sexual assault. I'm sorry. I want someone to take my complaint seriously. I want reports made, and I want an investigation. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize. We appreciate you being here. And if we could make sure we have your information, we do have a new sheriff and a new administration. And I think looking to the sheriff, trust that someone will follow up with you, but let's make sure we've got your information before you leave today. Thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Otherwise, we'll go online to Zoom. All right.
Hello, Wes White, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union co-president for the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, which is under National Union of the Homeless. So we have like 27 California Homeless Union chapters. Also do a YouTube channel, John Doe 13K. I also am part of the Housing Advisory Committee. I'm also the political action chair for NAACP. In the course of just following my own investigations, I ended up having a negative experience with our top cop, the sheriff. My First Amendment rights were subverted in the first off to even for the initial meeting. And then the substitute meeting, it turned into being a private meeting. And that was not the agreement, that was made in the beginning to make me not go to my own sit down. I was pretty well lambasted pretty hard. You want to talk about good cop, bad cop? Bad cop, she would have had an Emmy Award winning performance. And our good cop, Hoyne, he was there, Chief Operations Bureau, something. Kind of give you a little taste of how it went. For 45 minutes, I was trying to build an argument. Every couple of sentences, she'd destroy it before I could even get to the point. And so Hoyne jumps in and says, I'd like to make a point. And she says, with her finger wagging, no, you can't do that. This is between me and him. And if this is the way a public official operates in the public building, at the sheriff's office, in the conference room, she forcibly and aggressively convinced me to turn off my camera and at that point, I still had a lot of trust and belief in her. I told people to vote for her, and I really supported her. I believe in her. That was the only reason I turned it off. I was trying to make inroads, like it's not really about the content. It's about the progress, and everything was shut down. I mentioned this and that. No, that was before my time. That had nothing to do with me. The Marina Coastal parking lot. Well, they're good. I'm glad they're gone. They were disgusting. They deserve to go. What about them getting ticketed and towed? I'm glad they're gone. She'd eat her young, dude. I'm scared to death of her. She traumatized me hardcore. And I'm trembling now just thinking about it. Okay, so, and this is our top cop. Dude, I thought we were getting a different batch. I thought we were getting a new hand. But it's more the same, little Latina lesbian lady want to be a bigger KKK than a KKK, she's over. And that's not fair, dude. She's dangerous. I don't think she deserves a badge. I don't ever want to talk to her in private again. I need to have a camera around me my whole life now. I feel like I need a witness every single time. And this is the kind of trauma that everybody else is talking about too.
Thank you, Wes.
I'm sponsored by nobody. I'm been living here for 2 years, and I can safe to say I've had no experiences at all with the county sheriffs. But I was a police officer for over 20 years. I'm a retired municipal officer. And if that's not enough, I was a municipal officer there in Texas. And in order to clear the room entirely, I grew up in New York. So 3 strikes, I'm already out. I'd like to get back to the broader discussion, though, of the review board and talk about how review boards, historically, half of them have failed for various reasons. And I think you guys should be aware of what those reasons might be. Probably the biggest one is a change of administration, which I know you don't want. So that's an obvious. But the turnover and the commitment of the people who are involved with the review boards become a problem. The lack of staffing, you have to pay these people if you want them to be committed. They'll have to be full-time people. You'll have to have qualified investigators, which, yes, that might mean police officers. And I know that's a big no-no to many people. But I mean, the Bar Association has lawyers on their review boards. The ADA and the AMA, they all have doctors and dentists on their own review boards. And I see no reason not to have police involved in the review process. And having said review, I think that's one of the problems. I think the whatever organization you end up setting up, I think it has to be more than review. Review is after the fact. And a lot of what the people are talking about here today, you don't want these things to happen. No one wants these things to happen. And there's no one who hates bad cops worse than the 500,000 good cops that are out there. So I think you should consider that when you're coming up with who's on your committee. From what I hear, so far it's been like, well, we don't know. But the one comment I've heard is there'll be no cops. And I don't understand the point of that. You've got to sell the public that this is a integrity and not out to get people in order to get subpoena power and discipline power within the department. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome to Monterey County.
So good evening, supervisors. My name is Chris Barrera, president of LULAC 2055. We are here today to discuss the possibility of a sheriff oversight board. We have been through many years of having a sheriff who has been able to do what he pleases with no oversight or discipline. We as citizens of Monterey County have had to endure many embarrassing situations from our previous sheriff, such as criminal negligence, resulting in many deaths in our jail, the sheriff being censured, and substantiated sexual, racial, and retaliation harassment violations, just to mention a few. We do have a new sheriff, Tina Nieto, and she's going to do great things, making our sheriff department something to be proud of. We realize there will never be a perfect situation, and incidents and issues will arise, but we all need to work together. And that's why a civilian oversight committee needs to be put in place so the past does not have the possibility of repeating. It's time we get rid of the status quo and the good old boy mentality once and for all. During the campaign, all the candidates ran on transparency and of having an oversight board. The Sheriff Oversight Committee was sent a proposal. The Sheriff Oversight Committee has sent a proposal to you in full detail, step by step, of what we would like. We would like to have the Inspector General and the Civilian Oversight Committee model be put in place. That would be a great step in the right direction, and that would be an act of true transparency and accountability. To give the community a seat at the table is vital, and it would do wonders with the relationship between the community and the Monterey County Sheriff Department. We are at a crossroads right now, and we ask that you do not let this opportunity pass us by. Please remember the Monterey County Sheriff's Department belongs to all of us, and it should be a reflection of that. LULAC 2055 urges you to take action and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I just want to thank LULAC for alerting me originally to this legislation so that we could begin exploring it and learning more together. So thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? Otherwise, I'm going to head over to Zoom for public comment. Oh, sorry. Oh, good. Yes, of course. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is a good meeting. We need to have this. The community needs to hear what you have to say, what our sheriff has to say, and how can we work together. Little background, I'm a fourth generation criminal justice professional in my family. My great-grandfather, my father, my two older brothers, and myself. We primarily worked in the areas of reentry and mental health, always feeling that the criminal justice system is broken. I've worked 40 years in the system, from juvenile to federal probation, county, sheriff's departments in Santa Clara County, and here locally. I'm in agreement that we need oversight. I was a little concerned hearing that there might not be teeth in that. And we need to really look at that, because if we don't have teeth, then what the heck are we doing here? It's just ongoing conversations, reports, people being upset, and awful things continuing to happen. I want to be supportive of our sheriff's department, our law enforcement departments, but we need to have a process. I'm in agreement with the Inspector General and the Civil Community Advisory Board, working together in concert. I want you to have teeth in case we need to look at other areas that we don't even know might even happen. Another point I was listening to earlier, there's so many committees already, so many groups that are already overseen and a part. I heard 20. What did that produce? What will one more produce unless it has teeth? I'm in agreement as well that the past two administrations, I'm a professor, they get a D minus even. We need better. I'd like to give this sheriff a chance to do that and be that and respect people, their rights, and let us all work together to make that happen for the greater good. What do we have to lose? Our community. And so as a professional in the field, I'd like to see us all work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, final call for in-chamber comments, questions, feedback. We do have, for anyone who's not comfortable standing up and speaking, we do have copies of the flyer in the back of the room. And we really do want to hear your feedback. And if you have specific questions and want to leave your contact information, if you're comfortable, we will do our best to follow up as well. And I've got a page full of notes already, but let's move on over to Zoom. We have about a dozen hands raised. I'll call for names. And I think our clerk of the meeting will have to unmute people. Is that okay? So we're going to start with, and we're just going to go in the order that they're on my screen. We're going to start with Lynn Hamilton and then move along to Howard, followed by Chexie. Lynn, thanks for joining us.
Okay. Yes, my name is Lynn Hamilton, and I do believe that we need oversight. I think a future discussion, I think you're planning some more public meetings, and I'd really like to get more of a handle on the pros and cons of the different models, the IG alone versus the mixed model, the IG and the commission, or just the commission, just the pros and cons on the different models of oversight. Also, wondering how the current complaint system works and how it can be made more accessible, safe, and neutral. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And we've got next up Howard and then Chexie, followed by Joe.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Okay, this is all new to me, so that's why I had to ask.
Well, you're doing great.
I think there is a need for a board, a commission. I don't know about the combination, and I don't know about having just the one person to be the overseer. I like to have a board with different people and different viewpoints. But what I'm wondering is this also look into when the sheriff's department is given misinformation. I'm using an example of this last winter storm when the sheriff's office issued 2 evacuation notices for the town of San Ardo. It's not the sheriff's fault, but the information they were given was not correct at all. And I've researched local history for 40 years, including rivers, floods, and etc. So I know that the information that she received to make that issue was incorrect. So I want to know how incorrect information that the sheriff receives, how that can be stopped or looked into and maybe not happen anymore.
Great. You did great, Howard. Thanks for joining us tonight, and thank you for your comments. There are a number of duties that the sheriff office has responsibility for. Evacuation orders are one. Next up, we'll go to Chexie and then Joe, followed by Bernie. So Chexie, you're up. Chexie, are you with us? Otherwise, we'll move on to Howard and then Joe. All right, let's go along to Howard and then we'll circle back to Chexie. Did we get Howard already? All right. We'll go, okay, Joe, you're up. We'll go Joe and then Chexie. Joe, are you with us this evening? We've got you lined up for public comment next.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Madam
perfect.
Chair. I'm Joe Livernoise. I'm the president of the board of the Monterey County affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm sorry I'm unable to be there with you today. The NAMI Monterey County Board believes this issue is extremely important to those of us who have had experiences with law enforcement over the years. On July 24th, the NAMI board drafted a full statement regarding sheriff's oversight. I've submitted the entire statement by email, but I would like to make the following abridged statement on behalf of the NAMI board here today. The NAMI Monterey County Board of Directors endorses all efforts that guarantee public oversight over law enforcement in Monterey County, including the sheriff's office. While it is early in the process, NAMI is keeping an open mind about any oversight initiative the Board of Supervisors ultimately proposes. In any case, we will expect that any oversight scenario of the department specifically mandates reviews of policies and incidents involving the department's interaction with people living with mental health conditions, both on the streets and in jail. NAMI Monterey County is primarily concerned about health and safety issues at the Monterey County Jail. A lack of transparency about practices and responses to crisis situations at the jail has aroused public concerns for many years. Those concerns were validated with the Hernandez settlement mandates. NAMI is especially concerned about the medical and psychiatric treatment provided by the medical contractor at the jail. NAMI Monterey County believes that the review standards for any Citizens Oversight Commission must include review of treatment of the good citizens who are caught in the criminal justice web because of their mental health conditions. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Joe. All right, next up we have, let's see here, Bernie, followed by Leslie, then Martin. We'll give you permission to unmute, but you'll have to hit the unmute button on your side. So we've got Bernie, then Leslie, then Martin.
Hi, good evening, Supervisor Askew and Church and the residents of Monterey County and those who are listening. Bernie Gomez with Milpa. I am in full support of the Inspector General's office alongside a Civilian Oversight Commission, right? I think we as Milpa have been advocating for years now, right? Around accountability and transparency around this office and department. We know the past administrations, I guess, blatantly disrespect, right, and disregard for public safety, for just normal treating people with dignity, right, and just a, county to county, county employee to, elected official to elected official, like dialogue, I do hope, that Ms. Nieto can overcome, that wall created, that green wall, as they call it, right? That the sheriff's office has created to protect themselves, right? That she's able to really think of, go above and beyond the status quo. And that might be hard, because a sheriff will always be a sheriff, a cop will always be a cop. Those policies constrain people's best intentions. So, and I want to read something from the Voices, right? An article real quick, just it says, in a recent interview, Nieto told Voices that she is no longer backing the idea of a citizens panel, largely because of cost. And basically the cost would be 1% of the budget, which roughly turns out to be 1.5 million, right? In another part of the article, it says, especially when you're looking at fixing a whole system, right? And I want to say, there is a contradiction there, but she's right. This in order to see improvements in the county, in this county specifically, right, there will be the county will need to show faith and show force in the way it's going to fund this new department. Other organizations, other counties have been hamstringing this process by using very limited funding, right? Paying for people's times. And this is an office that has $150+ million budget. So 1%, 0.5%, whatever it is, at the end of the day, this is about the county having a sense of authority, a sense of probably hope that it can use its voice, right, and speak up against an elected official like the sheriff, because there is a lot of fear that goes around. I don't know that we see it sometimes, just here, people when they talk against the sheriff, there's a fear, a type of anxiety, and that's something that needs to change, and especially for the folks that are locked up right now. We've seen countless.
Bernie.
And yes, thank you. And
yeah, just a quick time check. We're just trying to informally keep folks to 2 minutes so we can hear from everyone, but really appreciate your feedback. I just want to again announce we do have a survey that's posted on the Maine County website. We really do want to hear from folks. We want your yes or no answers. We want your written comments, your thoughts, your questions to help will be essential in helping guide us as we figure out what options we have available to us. So please do fill that out and get that back to us in addition to comments here tonight. All right, we're going to move on to, let's see here, Leslie and then Martin, followed by Sharon. So we'll give you permission to unmute. You'll have to hit unmute on your side of the screen. We'll go Leslie, then Martin, then Sharon. And it looks like we need to give Leslie permission to unmute. Same for Martin and Sharon. Bear with us, technical. Who do we have controlling our audio right now? Is it Alex? Okay, downstairs. Okay, so we need Alex, if you could give me host capability, I can help keep our guests unmuted when necessary. We may have lost a connection. Okay, while we wait to get that solved, I think I see on the other side of here, we've got Jane. Are you able and ready to comment, Jane? I can see I can get you unmuted here. Been a little out of order. All right, we've got Jane. And are you able to unmute?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. We'll give
Jane
you your
Parker.
little time while we solve for the others. Okay, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for holding this meeting. It's really informative. I did miss most of Susan Blitch's presentation, but I wonder, so I have a question that can be answered at the end. The information that the Sheriff's Department collects and reports on regarding stops, is that available on the website? Why the person was stopped, what the demographics are, and so on. And then I will weigh in on the question of the Oversight Commission, et cetera. I do think having a commission is valuable. Part of why is, to check to make sure that the training and everything that the deputies are required to get is actually working and being implemented in the community. Also, I think the Oversight Commission has the ability to support Sheriff Nieto and her efforts to change the culture in the department. And that's something that she's a very competent person, but no one can do that kind of work alone. So I think this might help. I think having the commission be made up of multiple public seats that are designated, many of which I think should be designated for different parts of the community, organizations or status, versus saying, we think this person knows a lot and therefore should be on it. Sort of let it be, have there be representatives from, say, LULAC or and from mental health, maybe an inmate viewpoint, homelessness, et cetera. So I think that will be really valuable, plus an inspector general. Also, I think it'll be really important to have clear guidelines for how issues that surface get resolved. And also, as the former law enforcement person mentioned, someone else mentioned, we have a lot of commissions and very few of them are as effective as they might be. And so really thinking clearly about how to set the commission up for success in terms of being able to do the job and be effective, I think would be really valuable. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Great. Thank you so much, former Supervisor Jane Parker. We've got our IT folks on their way back up and down. We did have a Zoom crash, so we're getting things reestablished so that we can continue hearing public comment. But it may take us a minute. So for those of you who are still on Zoom, bear with us. We need to get some technical issues resolved before we can continue hearing public comment. But it's about 7 o'clock. We talked about going until 7:30. Do we want to? Yeah. So we'll do any other final comments in the audience if anyone else didn't get a chance to share your thoughts with us. I will just again make the announcement that we do have here we go. We do have actually, do you want to announce this and I'll get this up and running?
Just want to emphasize again, we do have the survey in the background over there. So anybody would like to fill that in, and in lieu of speaking or in adjacent to speaking as well.
All right, thank you. And it's also posted on the website. Okay, we've got Leslie Noble, followed by Martin O'Malley, and you should be able to unmute yourself and share your thoughts. Thank you for your patience.
I believe I'm unmuted. Is that correct?
You are. We can hear you. Thank you for your patience.
Great. So no doubt in my mind that an oversight committee is needed, but the powers and the duty of this oversight committee are nebulous at best. I mean, there's no clear-cut path that's been outlined or even displayed. And are we looking for volunteers again for this job that, quite frankly, I feel like it's an exercise in futility. We've heard Nieto tell us that, hey, we're not going to produce even if you ask. I don't understand why we would even engage in this committee. We don't have the ability to change anything. I've been after the noise ordinance for 8 years and with zero success. So it would take a couple of years to put this committee together. If we were lucky, and then what do we have at the end of that? Is this a volunteer-based committee? Are we asking for volunteers to serve as these oversight people? with no powers? I mean, what do we expect to accomplish at the end of this show? I really don't see it. Anyhow, that's my piece. And I'll let it go here, but I'll tell you, I'm done volunteering and spending time on these issues when nothing ever transpires. Nothing. I mean, 8 years, long time. 8 years as a LUAC committee member. A lot of things that we're really falling short. I want to know where my tax dollars are going, because I think that they're going no place but Laguna Seca. So good luck. I won't be part of this.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for being with us tonight. All right. Next up, we've got, let's see here, Martin, followed by Sharon, and then Alan. Martin, you'll have to press unmute on your side. All right. We'll move along to Sharon. You should be able to hit unmute. We'll come back to Martin. Sharon, are you with us?
I am unmuted, I believe. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
I'm Sharon Miller, and I totally empathize with our new sheriff and the Board of Supervisors as they try to balance the budget under these uncertain economic times, especially when they are under a compliance order at the jail that's costing approximately $1 million a year for the next several years. I also know that instituting a civilian oversight commission and an inspector general could very well nip problems in the bud before they turn into egregious and expensive mega problems, thus saving money in the long run. Such oversight also facilitates communication and develops trust between law enforcement and community members, which leads to safer communities for all of us. A case in point is a question of how many deaths there have been at the jail this year. We have heard there may have been just one, and yet the local media have reported on the particulars of between 3 and 5. Pick a number. Which one's correct? I find it astonishing that we don't have a hard, validated number in something as basic as who died, where, and when. An oversight commission and inspector general should be able to track and report this kind of data so we understand the nuances and can support protocols that are crafted to address such matters based on clear, valid information. That would be a win-win for all. Thank you for considering my input tonight. And good luck to all of us.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, we'll go back over to Martin. If you're with us, Martin, otherwise we'll move on to Alan. All right, Alan, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Alan Hoffa, Monterey Council member and candidate for District 5 Supervisor. I would urge the Board of Supervisors to give serious consideration to the input of citizens groups, including the NAACP, ACLU, League of Women Voters, LULAC, MILPA, NAMI, and others. These organizations have long histories in Monterey County, and their concerns with respect to transparency and oversight are extremely important. Please find a way to have both an Inspector General to provide professional guidance and service to the committee, as well as public commissioners to ensure that the work of the commission is accountable to the public and responds to public concerns. The commission gives credibility to the work of the Inspector General, and the Inspector General gives investigative expertise to the work of the commission. It needs appropriate funding to do the necessary work. What that funding is open to discussion, and you as a board need to discern what proper funding shall be. I understand the sheriff's concern about her budget not being impacted, but it's also important to understand this commission and its function is important to the community. Above all, whether you go with an Inspector General, a commission, or both, it must be independent. Lacking true independence, it cannot satisfy your responsibility as a county board to provide oversight, nor will it satisfy the public's interest in community oversight. As Marianne Gawain earlier noted, if we had had an independent citizens oversight commission in the past, we might not have made the mistakes we did that led to the Hernandez settlement. In the long run, good oversight will save money and lead to better public safety outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, for being with us tonight and for your comments. Next up, we've got Regina, followed by Aram.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you so much for joining us, Regina.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me speak, and thank you for hosting this. I wish I could be there in person, but I'm competing with another event that I'm at a listening session for. So I stepped out to just provide my public comment quickly. I would like to see an oversight committee made up of civil rights organization, in Monterey County, people that have lived experiences, organizations such as the Village Project, which is a mental health, culturally congruent, affirming mental health provider. I can't tell you how many days that we get calls from the jail around the current conditions of the jail right now. And the Hernandez lawsuit is not being followed according to the complaints that we're getting. The NAACP used to have a complaint form there, and that is no longer being made available to the inmates. But I also, most importantly, think that this oversight commission is really critical so that transparency can happen and we can make sure that the inmates that are currently housed are receiving the appropriate interventions as well, because the food there contributes to the poor health outcomes that people have when they get out of incarceration, because the food's very unhealthy and it taxes all of our dollars. But most importantly, I do think that the African-American churches have been left out of this. And I want to make sure that you uplift people that have lived experiences and civil rights organizations and organizations that are BIPOC, LGBTQ plus serving. And also, I would like to see a survey happen in the jail for all of the current inmates. And thank you so much for having me speak.
Thank you, Regina. Let's see here. So next up, we've got Aram, followed by Chexi.
Yeah, hello, can y'all hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, hello, everyone. Buenas tardes. My name is Aram Coronado. I'm a coordinator at Milpa and also a community member. Thank you so much today for having this meeting. As we know, we have had several people die at the county jails. We have Arely Garcia missing, and so many issues that are going on in our communities. I think this is a perfect opportunity for current Sheriff Tina Nieto to build that bridge between community members and also the sheriffs. I feel this oversight community is very important to have community members from different backgrounds to be represented and be in this commission, not just people that have law enforcement background, just because those that are closest to the problem are the ones closest to the solution. And I feel we oftentimes use that, but there's no representation of that anywhere. This is an opportunity not just to check the box, but also to allow that transparency and for the sheriffs to hear and respond to the public concerns that we have seen historically have been pushed aside and dismissed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And then we'll do a final call again for Chexi. You should be able to unmute yourself. You'll have to do it on your side of the screen. And this is our final online public comment. Unless anyone, I'll do last call for public comments for anyone who's online with us tonight who wanted to speak. Chexi, we've got you. You should be able to unmute.
Hello, my name is Peter DiGregorio. I'm concerned if we're grabbing the best practices of the other counties that have had this for, it seems like for maybe 3 decades. I think there's something we could maybe borrow from them that we don't have to reinvent. And then also I would like to make more transparent of the hiring practices and the training that are given to our sheriffs to be part of the transparency that is brought to this board. So it's clear to not only to the board, but also to the public of how people become sheriffs of Monterey County. That's it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Oops. Thank you so much for joining us and for your comments tonight. I saw a few other hands go up and then go down. Sylvia, if you wanted to speak, now would be the time. Unless I lost. Let's see here. And Sharon Miller, I think we had you. Did we have Sharon? Did we hear from Sharon? It's hard to keep track. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I'm just going to scroll down real quick. So this is last call for public comment, feedback as for verbal testimony, although we will continue to collect written comments, written surveys, so that we can sit back down again as Supervisor Church and I kind of take all this information, take all these questions, take all this feedback, take another look at the government code sections to figure out what options we have, what those pros and cons may be, and convene, I think, maybe another listening session. I do want to again mention we have a survey that's posted online on the Maine County website. So please do share that with others. Help us collect feedback from folks. If you wanted to fill it out at home or here, if you don't have to leave your personal information on it, but if you did have specific questions and you wanted to write in your name and contact information so that we can follow up, we will try to do so. We don't have a hard and fast due date at this point. I think at this point, we're just we don't have a preconceived idea of where we end from here. We're just really trying to open up the conversation and start doing our research so that we can figure out what questions we have to convene with our staff. I do want to just thank everyone for your public testimony today. Your questions were really good. The feedback was really good. The research that our county council has done to help us understand there really are a lot of limitations in place. So what we do and how we reconcile the limitations of existing law, existing code with the expectation that I hear loud and clear from the community is going to be a challenge for us. I want to thank the sheriff. It's hard sometimes to sit and listen to constructive or unconstructive feedback about the work that you're doing. You've walked into a very challenging department, I think, as we all know. And I just want to commend you for being so open to having this conversation with us, knowing that there are a number of challenging things that you're trying to wrap your arms around. But I really appreciate being able to have an open dialogue with you so that I can understand what you're dealing with, so that you can understand what I'm trying to do. I just want to thank you for being here tonight and listening. A lot of the questions that we heard, I think, were directed to the sheriff. So we'll go back and transcribe what we heard, sit down with the sheriff and do our best to get some information back out to folks that answer those questions. I think the sheriff has a lot of additional information that could be shared in response to questions that were posed tonight. I also just want to acknowledge that democracy is messy sometimes. We have a system that serves us. There's 5 elected supervisors. We have a very specific set of duties and responsibilities as articulated in government code. The sheriff is independently elected. We all work together. The sheriff has a set of duties and responsibilities that are articulated in government code as well. And so collectively, we're all doing our best to be of service. And ultimately, we're accountable to our voters in this county. So from an ultimate accountability standpoint, our voters really are the ones who we need to listen to and account to. But I think there are clearly some options for how we can continue to build the trust between the Board of Supervisors, the sheriff, the public, our other law enforcement partners. Without, as I said before, without that trust, we can't have safety. And I think we're all here committed to doing our best to increase accountability, transparency, and ultimately the health and safety of everyone in our county. Do you have any final comments? Yeah, I'll let you pass it over.
Yeah, just a few final comments too. And again, I want to follow up on Supervisor Askew's thanks, to everybody. It's online and here. There's a lot of good input, a lot of good comments, a big variety of experiences and thoughts that I think are really important because we're really at the beginning of a process. There's going to be more meetings. There's going to be more discussion. We want to make sure we do this right. So it really has to be explored right. I think there's just a whole range of things we need to determine. Do we have the Inspector General and a commission? Do we have them both? What are the powers of both of them? As we go through this process, and we saw that are a few other counties doing this, we're all in a learning process through the state. This is a new law. We don't know how it's going to turn out. We really, don't know how. I'm assuming the courts will probably weigh in at some point, and there might be conflicts with other laws. There's going to be a long process involved in here. But what's really important is to have a fair and an effective system, and I think that's what we're trying to put in place. It's there's a whole range of issues as people have brought up about, as I just mentioned, the structure or how many people have on this committee. What do we want in the background? Do individuals? Should it be representing groups? Maybe a combination of both. One speaker, I think Marianne mentioned something about being in a rural area, and that's another issue too. Is the sheriff's department is the primary law enforcement force out in the rural areas, and do we have to balance our urban and rural membership onto this as well? So there's really a lot to do, a lot to look into this. I don't know when we're going to hold another meeting, but I would think it's going to be sooner than later because I think we need to really assimilate, pull together all these thoughts, and then come back. One of the early speakers talked about the Police Officers' Bill of Rights and wanting more detail on that. I think there's more information we need to get out here so people understand these many agencies that are involved in oversight. What role do they all have? How effective are they? But what is really different about this one over those others is this one's going to be local. This is going to be us here in Monterey County. It's not the state. It's not mandated by a court. And that gives us a certain responsibility, a certain power, and I hopefully some real effectiveness and handling this. So anyway, again, just thank everybody for coming.
Great. And maybe I'll just go, County Council, any final thoughts? No? Okay. Thank you for the research. It sounds like we're gonna have a list of questions for you. And I just want one other sort of just note to make. So the Board of Supervisors is, of course, the five of us who sit here and meet every Tuesday. Glenn and I were assigned by our colleagues to be on ad hoc committee, which is sort of an informal way to say, hey, will you two go do some research, talk about this? It's sort of an informal way for us to engage in a topic area. So we've been, talking to each other in the hallway downstairs and between meetings. We've had a couple, opportunities to sit down with County Council as an ad hoc committee. We don't have formal meetings. We're collecting information, sharing it with each other. So these forums are really the chance that we have to have a public space to hear information. I think my commitment and our commitment is to what we're hearing and what we're learning, where we want to make sure it's shared publicly so that we can all learn and figure out what our options are together. And what you heard tonight with some of these limitations that are in place, we're hearing that too and trying to figure out how do we go from there. So we will chat on the phone after this, get our transcriptions, and then circle back with county staff and make some announcements about what our next meeting would be, where we can collect some information to questions that were asked. Sheriff, thank you again for joining us. And any other final thoughts you wanted to share? We've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm not sure. I don't have a clear list of all the questions, but if you wanted to throw a little bit of information back out while we've got time.
No, if we could get just a copy of the questions, and so we can get back to you and answer a lot of them. A lot of the stuff that I did take notes on every speaker, and a lot of the stuff's already there available to the public. They probably just don't know how to get there, and so. We'd like that set of questions so we can get back to you and it can get out to the public so they can understand how the system works, and that the information is there. There's already some transparency.
Great. Thank you very much. And I guess just to county staff, Nick or whoever is sort of our staffing us for this, I don't know if we have a sign-in sheet at the back, but I do want to make sure that for anyone who wants to receive direct notification as we have future meetings, if you can provide, we're going to set a sign-in sheet at the door. So if you do want to be, rather than just sort of getting the notifications that have come out on social media and other places, if you do want a direct email, please do make sure you leave a very well-written so that we can read it, email address so that we can start just sort of a distribution list. For anyone who's with us online who wants to be added to a direct email list for updates, I'm going to just ask you to email the clerk of the board at cob@co.monterey.ca.us and just ask to be added to the distribution list for the Sheriff Oversight Advisory Committee so that we can keep you posted. But I know you have a lot of other things to do this evening, but thanks for spending it with us. I've got a lot more questions to go back and research.